Good morning, Dan and Amy. You heard it in Mike Scott's newscast, but last evening in Wauwatosa, Wisconsin, near Milwaukee, there was acts of violence in response to a decision by local prosecutors to not charge a police officer who shot and killed a 17-year-old black young man last February. Milwaukee County District Attorney John Chisholm, by the way, Democrat, by the way, if you don't remember the name, key antagonist of Scott Walker.
Oh, that's right. That's how it sounds familiar. Okay.
In a 14-page letter laying out his rationale to not bring charges against the police officer involved in that shooting, said the evidence showed that the man in question, a 17-year-old named Alvin Cole, fled from police carrying a stolen 9mm handgun. There was squad car audio evidence along with testimony from the officer and two fellow officers that he said showed Cole had fired a shot. The young man had fired a shot while fleeing, and he refused commands to drop the gun. Chisholm writing in his letter, he did not surrender the weapon and was fired upon by Officer Mensah, causing his death. There is sufficient evidence that Officer Mensah had an actual subjective belief that deadly force was necessary, and that belief was objectively reasonable. Well, that didn't stop people from taking the occasion, because the merits don't matter to some, of engaging in violence. And this was the sort of violence that you may want to take notice of there in the suburbs, if you have not been disabused yet from the experiences in Kenosha and Lancaster and Rochester, that this is not just a big city problem. Vandalizing random people's homes in Wauwatosa near Milwaukee. And there's a video of this. I retweeted a tweet from Mark Dice, and there's obviously coverage now of police needing to use tear gas and the like to disperse the crowd.
Well, they're going to run into people's homes. That's what they want. Like, we're going to take over your homes. That theme, and it was just unruly. And this comes on the same day that Derek Chauvin, the police officer charged in the murder of George Floyd, was released on bail. Well, there was concern that there might be some rioting last night, which there was not in Chicago, thank God.
Wauwatosa is a suburban community of about 45,000 people, just FYI. And you watch that video and you tell me that regardless of where something happens, some people are going to take the occasion to engage in violence, it seems, because they've been appeased by civilian political authorities in so many communities, both big urban ones and suburban ones. And I don't think I'm being hyperbolic to say that can very easily come to a neighborhood near you if we don't reestablish the rule of law and some consideration for our justice system and how it plays out, and whether it's the George Floyd case or any other case, and also the cases being fact-specific, as we always try and emphasize on this show. For more on this and a few other matters, including last night's debate, we're pleased to be joined again by Clarence Page, Pulitzer Prize-winning syndicated columnist and Washington-based member of Chicago Tribune's editorial board, who this year celebrated the big 50, 50 years. I think half a century sounds more regal. Yeah. A half century at the Chicago Tribune. Clarence Page, thanks so much for joining us again. Appreciate it.
Good morning. Thank you. And you had to rub in that 50 years.
It's an accomplishment.
50 down, 50 to go.
Thank you. I appreciate that very much.
Yeah, no problem. So what about this continuing issue of violence in response to police-involved legal matters, police-involved criminal investigations and criminal prosecutions? And again, as you just heard us talking about, this playing itself out in the streets of Wauwatosa yesterday.
Yeah, it is very unfortunate. It is tragic, and in some ways it's outrageous that we still have this kind of civil disorder these days, and I think it's something that since the events of yesterday were in a place where I was not, I don't want to go deeply into commenting on what was justified and what needs to be done about it. But we've had an upsurge lately in violence on the streets, and it's been very much a local issue, yet it's caused national concern. But I don't know that, frankly, as far as the presidential race, which I've been deeply immersed in. It will probably be talked about in kind of broad terms by the Trump and Mike Pence, who've made more of an issue out of it lately in this campaign, and yet it's really a local issue.
But do you think it is? But it's got a federal piece, especially when you're talking about scrambling National Guard, or you're talking about federal property under assault in particular communities. And I wonder if you think Trump and Pence have definitely talked more about it than Biden and Harris. But do you think that Biden and Harris have not talked enough about it, have not been clear enough on the topic?
Well, the main thing is it's primarily a local issue. The National Guard are of very limited use. You saw them brought in for a night or two in Chicago or D.C., and then brought out again because the National Guard, and I'm an Army veteran myself, I tell you one thing, the Army's National Guard are not trained to be police officers. This is the kind of thing that is best handled by local people.
No, but Clarence, sorry to interrupt, but I mean, but it's not just National Guard; it's also the Department of Justice coming in and with Operation Legend and doing prosecutions, federal prosecutions. Right, and so the combination of the federal resources where they're properly deployed and in a limited fashion, but federal resources nonetheless. And frankly, in some cities, including Chicago, there's more of a clamor for federal resources.
Okay, you want to talk about Operation Legend? That's fine. I mean, that program is actually working well. It's not a military program. It's a coordination of federal and local police.
Right.
In Chicago, it's doing a lot of good. In fact, one of Chicago's biggest problems is guns being illegally brought over from Indiana next door into Chicago. And they have made dozens of arrests now through Operation Legend because of the support that Chicago police have gotten. And that's something, and also the coordination between the Chicago mayor, Roy Lightfoot, who's a former U.S. attorney, and the current U.S. attorney for Northern Illinois. They have worked together very well, and they've made great progress. And so, knock on wood, we have had a end for now to the sort of street violence that you saw when you had a couple hundred looters who came down and broke windows and stole items on Michigan Avenue in downtown Chicago. So we've made some progress in that area. What exactly will be done there in Wisconsin, I've yet to see.
Well, what do you fear? I mean, after election night, do you fear if Trump wins re-election that we're going to have looting downtown and rioting and civil unrest?
I don't recall in my 50 years in the business ever having a riot after an election. We, as far as our concern, we don't want to have riots under any circumstances. But people don't tend to take to the streets over an election that didn't go their way, except with peaceful protests. That happened after Donald Trump was elected the last time.
Yeah. With respect to last night's debate, Kamala Harris, do you think she cleared sort of the threshold of credibility to be a heartbeat away from the president?
Well, I think there's little doubt of that. She is the nominee of the party. And just like Mike Pence, and she went toe-to-toe with him last night. I don't think you're going to see much of a change in the polling. We will see.
And the focus of the debate from the Democrats' perspective, like it was with the presidential debate last week, and that is on COVID-19 and the response. The pushback that Pence gave last night that didn't really come through in the presidential debate between Trump and Biden is essentially this: wait a second, you supported a lot of the policies that we necessarily had to do based on listening to the experts that created the economic devastation that they created. We knew that locking down the economy was going to be bad for the economy. This is not exactly a riddle. And now you're suggesting that we're responsible for the consequences, solely responsible for the consequences of policies you also supported. I mean, don't you think that is a little bit disingenuous of Biden and Harris?
Yeah, I think it's a flawed argument myself because you're absolutely right. This crisis is one that calls for drastic action. The government called for that. I was surprised, personally, pleasantly surprised at how quickly and how broadly the public cooperated. However, you're right. It caused great damage to the economy. At least, what we hope will be temporary damage. But it's been over 6 months now. That's a long temporary, and it is something that what really troubles me now is the efforts by the administration to want to get the economy open again without taking what would seem to me to be pretty minimal precautions. Was it worth it shutting down the economy? I think yes. If you compare us with other countries, right now, Europe is reopening, and I don't count China because I don't trust China's numbers, but nevertheless, Europe is certainly reopening successfully. And we have seen now the world's largest economy, ours, is having the least success now in pushing back the virus. And that's what really troubles me right now. The mixed signals the public is getting have resulted in a lot of confusion. A lot of people don't want to cooperate now. They don't want to wear masks. They don't want to do this and that. And we're finding more hotspots popping up.
Well, I mean, the other thing I would think, knowing you a little bit, having had conversations with you, that would concern you is who is disproportionately being impacted by lockdown policies, and whether it's business or schools. And that's the poor. I know that lifting people out of poverty is a big focus of yours, and the poor are being disproportionately hammered by these lockdown policies.
Yeah, always. That's the problem, of course. I think now, how fortunate I am to be in a job that I'm able to do from home, to use Zoom and other internet functions in order to be able to carry on. And that's a real divide, and it's a new divide. Our kids now, if you haven't got some money and resources, kids are having a hard time staying educated at home. All of these issues that have popped up have just made the gap between rich and poor even worse. And that means we really do need to reopen as soon as we can, but do it safely.
I know, but what does that mean? I mean, there's tens of thousands of computers, Clarence, at high schools all over this city. At people that are we've lost them to the streets, and I don't see CTU coming. They're not even making arrangements to try and prepare for some hybrid learning.
Yeah, well, that's the problem. We really do need to do that before the kids fall farther behind. And I'm very concerned for all the youngsters who are going to be held back and not be able to really catch up because they won't have the kind of exposure that they need. And this is something that is an ongoing problem, and it affects the entire economy. I think reopening the economy too quickly, it sounds almost like the idea of which they did in Sweden. What do they call that? The idea of
herd immunity.
Herd immunity. Right.
Yes, you're right. This is kind of what we're moving toward, and that means about 3% of the population you're willing to sacrifice, and I'm not willing to make that sacrifice. Also,
well, at your age, you shouldn't, and that's why people your age and people with comorbidities, they should, not shelter in place, but stay inside, but at least to have a choice. Give American people and give Illinoisans a choice whether or not you want to go out, return to school, or stay inside your home.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. I don't have a choice, really. I need to stay inside, and I'm lucky I've got the kind of a job that I can do from inside. And that's a real problem to me. And also, I do look forward to a vaccine, but I don't want a vaccine to come too quickly. People ask me, would you use a vaccine if it's available? And I say, yes, but I would not be first in line. You know,
Yeah.
I mean,
I'll be first in line.
Well, yeah.
I was
You know.
I was a Salk and Saban baby. You know, I mean, back when I was in like first or second grade, the Salk vaccine came out, and everybody celebrated it. My parents couldn't wait for me to get it. And this was after I'd gone through a whole summer. None of us kids could go to the local swimming pool because, you know, the word was that swimming pools would transmit polio.
Mm-hmm.
And you had classmates who were wearing braces on their legs because they had polio. And it's like Forrest Gump in the movie. Later, the Saban vaccine came out. And the Saban vaccine, an accident occurred where a number of kids got a vaccine that was flawed, and they wound up getting polio. And that caused, it was a national concern, but it didn't stop people from using the vaccine. And that was a different era, you know. It was right after the early 50s, right after World War II. National cooperation was a very strong feeling in the air, and national trust in government was higher than it is now. And that concerns me. I think we do need to try to pull together on that.
I wanted to, on a different topic, I wanted to ask you, since you're uniquely situated to answer the question as a Pulitzer Prize winner, there's an open letter that was penned by Peter Wood at the National Association of Scholars and signed by a number of academics, including your friend Glenn Lowry, economics professor at Brown University, that the Pulitzer Board must revoke Nicole Hannah-Jones's Pulitzer Prize, arguing that the evidence and the criticism from historians about the 1619 Project is so overwhelming that that conferring a Pulitzer Prize on the project, and Nicole Hannah-Jones specifically, is illegitimate. It denigrates the prize. How do you respond to that?
First of all, this isn't the first time that someone's Pulitzer has been challenged, and it is something that the board does take seriously. In this particular instance, I think it's important to remember that before the Pulitzer was awarded, the 1619 Project was controversial, and
Yes.
a big petition of historians had protested the notion that black people didn't have white. Well, I'm going to phrase this badly because I don't have it in front of me. But the notion that black people were more or less solely responsible for their own liberation, it really downplayed the role of white abolitionists. And in fact, Nicole wound up redoing part of the essay. She made some changes there so that it wasn't phrased quite the way I just badly phrased it, and didn't imply that white people didn't have anything to do with black liberation. But nevertheless, the series on the whole, because it calls on us to think of 1619 as the nation's founding, which was the time when the first Africans arrived in North America. That's a very upfront theme, very upfront argument, and the Pulitzer folks, judges, and the board awarded the essay and the whole project the Pulitzer Prize, knowing all of that. And so I don't think it's really new. As far as the response with our Glenn Lowry, he and I and a bunch of other black journalists and scholars wrote a response report, 1776 report, we call it. Bob Woodson of the Woodson Foundation started that project. Mm-hmm. And it has started a nice, generous dialogue here in the country. The main advantage to me is it's caused people to look at history again. And just the fact that we have this kind of a dialogue, I think, is really positive.
Okay. He is Clarence Page, Pulitzer Prize-winning syndicated columnist, Washington-based member of the Chicago Tribune's editorial board. Clarence, thanks as always for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Take care.
Yes, thanks for your historical perspective. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
There's only one radio show in Chicago talking about today's biggest stories and telling you what they really mean. That show is this one, Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560, The Answer.
Since 1975, Starcase has been called upon to provide shipping cases for some of the most prestigious and innovative companies in the world.